Welcome back to Novel Writing 101, the 21-week course where I teach you how to write the first draft of your novel. Today I'm going to give you some advice on characters, so let's get started. It's week 11 of our course and week 7 of section B, writing and execution. We're getting to the halfway point of section B, so you should have a really good chunk of your first draft done. I know some things have probably come up for you on this writing journey, and I'm here to give you some advice on one thing specific today that hopefully helps you. And that is characters, specifically writing characters well using motive, weakness, and action. Now, we all know plot is key to the story, but so is character. Characters can have an immense impact on where your story goes and how long people stick with it. When writing characters and incorporating them into my story, I like to think of two different ways to tackle this. Is my character real? And is my character interesting? Now, it's important to make your characters seem real so your readers relate to them, even if they're vastly different than themselves. I'm talking real flaws, real goals, dreams, fears, all of those things that make us human and make us tick. Now, switching gears to making our character interesting, of course we want to make our character interesting because we want the reader to feel invested in the story and what's going to happen to this character. Now today I'm going to help you make your characters real and interesting by covering three main key parts of characters: motive, weakness, and action. Your motive is what your character wants to achieve throughout this story. Now early on in the planning and prep phase, I gave some example premises to help kind of break down some of the ideas I was teaching, and we're going to do the same thing right now. We're going to use our premise example of a young girl stumbles into the woods, finds a rare dragon egg, and gets thrown into this kingdom's politics and prophecy and superstition. I'm just paraphrasing. We're going to put up what it actually was up here. But how can we look at this premise and who this character is supposed to be in terms of motive? Now let's think, if you were this girl and you stumbled upon this dragon egg and now you've gone probably from the life of a commoner to the life of someone embroiled in court politics, you're probably going to have a lot of different ideas of what that motive could be as a writer. Does she want to use this kind of infamy and this superstition around herself to push up into the upper echelons of society and go from rags to riches, essentially? Is she going to play into all these court politics and try to make it work for her and use it to her advantage? Or is she more so wanting to just separate herself entirely from the whole situation and go back to her old life and not have to deal with this kingdom and these rulers and this craziness at all? This is where motive is so interesting and important to character development because, again, it's making your character real and interesting by showing the reader what they want and how things in the story might help or hinder that goal. So I want you to really think about what the motive for your character is. And you don't exclusively have to focus on your main character. It's so interesting to me as a writer and a reader when side characters have their own motives and we see those motives play out through subplots. It can also affect what happens to the main character because maybe in this example premise, our main character is trying to kind of navigate these court politics and maybe she wants to make a name for herself and get something good out of the situation. But then maybe there's a court advisor over here, character B, who wants to sabotage her and doesn't think she belongs and thinks there's this great superstition around her being here and that it's going to ruin everything, so he's trying to sabotage her. And so his motive is to get her out. Her motive is to go up into society, and so they're going to have obviously major conflicts along the way. Again, motive is so interesting and it can make a story so rich because you're adding these layers of agendas and dreams and wants and how your character is going to get from A to B if they're even going to get their goal at all. So again, really think about how your character's motives can affect the story and help build out a richer character overall. Now we're going to talk about weakness, which as a writer who loves really, really flawed characters, I love character weakness. Character weakness can be so much more than just their physical weakness or their ineptitude in certain areas. Maybe they're not book smart, maybe they're really frail and they have to go fight a dragon. You know what I mean? But it can be so much richer in terms of what are their fears? What are the skeletons in their closet? What are their prejudices? All of these things that can kind of have cracks in their armor as a character that let things happen to them and get them in bad situations. Let's go back to our example premise. Now let's continue with this theory that our main character wants to kind of work her way up into society since she's been thrown into this kingdom and the politics of it all. And let's say that her weakness is that she's really bad at like manipulating people. So obviously she's going to have a really hard time navigating this cutthroat society in court when she can't keep up. Another weakness could be that she has no idea how a royal court even functions. She grew up as a commoner. She has no idea the etiquette and the like schmoozing that goes along with making rich people like you. This may cause her to misstep many times throughout the story where she's constantly getting in situations where she's making a fool of herself or insulting people and making enemies without meaning to. And again, this is going to make the story so much richer and make this character so much richer because she's getting in situations and she's learning about herself and showing her weaknesses to everyone in the room. But I want to back it up and give a different example because maybe let's go back to the motive example of she wants nothing to do with this high society, this kingdom's politics, and she just wants to go back to life as she knew it. Now, her weakness could be that she's so stubborn and so set in her ways that she is blinded to the fact that she's not escaping any of this. Maybe she's a little naive to it all too, and she thinks that she can just go back to her normal life. Maybe she tries to run away and is swiftly brought back by the royal guards and learns that she's actually a captive. Maybe she's used to everyone in her village being very upfront and speaking plainly and not used to all these like concealed threats and manipulation. And so as she's in this court and these politics, she takes everyone at face value and doesn't realize that everyone's looking to stab her in the back. Maybe her weakness is that she's too trusting and she gets close to the prince only to learn that he's trying to kill her. I could give so many more examples, and this is so fun to me because you're really crafting a real person because real people have flaws, and those flaws make that person interesting. And I know I've said this in the past, but really good characters don't always have to be likable. Yes, their weaknesses and their flaws could make them not really liked, but still relatable. So I want you to really get into this like you did with Motive and think about your main character and your side characters and what weaknesses they could have and how that could affect the character themselves, the people around them, and the plot in total. The last thing we're going to talk about is action when it comes to character. Action is pretty straightforward. What is this character doing to move the plot forward or to get to their goal or fulfill their motive? Again, using our example premise of the girl that found the dragon egg in the woods and she's now thrust into this kingdom and their politics. And let's use the motive of she does not want to be involved in this at all and she just wants to go back to her normal life. Now the action there might be that she just refuses to assimilate and she tries to run away. And then she gets captured by the royal guards and they bring her right back and now she's a prisoner. Now what actions is she going to take to move the story forward and try to get to her motive of leaving this all behind and going home? She might try to escape again. She might try to befriend some people in the court to try to help her escape. She might have to get close to the prince, who may or may not be her enemy at this point. And maybe they find common ground because he wants her gone because she threatens his throne and she wants to be gone because she doesn't want the throne. So maybe there's an unexpected alliance there of them working together to try to get her out of this kingdom. Or if we switch motives again and we go back to the fact that maybe she wants to rule this kingdom, maybe she's now having a plot to kill the prince. Maybe she's working with a faction of the court that doesn't want that prince to rule and is trying to stage a coup. There's so much here. As you can see, you can keep building on these actions and what is my character doing to fulfill their motive? How are their weaknesses affecting that? How are other characters' motives affecting them? Where do they need to split off the path? Where do they need to find a new plan? All of these things, all these actions are going to, again, move your story forward in an exciting and interesting way and also help develop your character because when things succeed, when things fail, that's going to affect how they feel and might change their plans. They also might change their motives along the way because maybe something happens with another character or maybe they learn something about themselves. Maybe something fails and it's like a big aha moment. These things can always shift and change, but again, it's moving the story forward and it's making a more robust and interesting character. I know I threw a lot at you guys today, but just sit with your character and your story for a bit before you finish writing this week and ask yourself, like, who is my character? Who's my main character? Who are my side characters? What are their flaws? What are their motives? What actions are they taking to fulfill those motives? And maybe start to think about how those characters' motives compete. Again, is side character B going to impact the main character's plan because they want something different? Or is someone actually trying to get the same thing and they're either helping each other or competing for it? Just really let your mind run wild with this. There is no right or wrong answer to how your story can unfold. It's all up to you. So there we have it today. We covered characters, how to make them real and interesting through motive, weakness, and action. And I know this might seem like a lot, and remember, this is your first draft, so you don't have to have everything figured out. If you just want to keep chugging away and finish your first draft and want to have some notes on the side as you're writing of like, okay, so I know I already wrote chapter 3 where the main character does this and this, but I really think that she would act this way instead because her end goal is this. It's totally fine to have notes set aside for things you need to go back and change. Remember, don't change anything now. Keep chugging forward. But it's always good to have some notes of like, I know this needs to happen. Let's keep it going. But I'm going to keep this in the back of my mind of like, this is our aim for the story in total. Your homework for this week is, as always, to just keep working on your first draft and hitting whatever goals you've set for yourself in your personal contract. Next week, we're going to talk about writer's block and banishing perfectionism, so get ready for that. Until then, happy writing, and I'll see you next time.